Hello everyone, this is Van Silly, and welcome to my first ever episode of Breaking Down the Plays. Today we're going to be breaking down the plays of Cloud9 versus TSM, where I thought that Cloud9 did a very nice execution in round number 10 for the Pulse Invitational Best Out of 3 Single Elimination Quarterfinal Matchup versus TSM. That was a mouthful, but we got it. So basically in this situation now, in this third map tiebreaker, whoever won this one was moving over to the semifinals to face off against Together We're Terrific, but now known as Team Envy. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, but feel free to watch it and comment in the end and let me know what you'd like to change, what you like, what you didn't like, and what you recommend for me to do if we actually do have some good traction for this and you guys would like to see more. I'd be willing to do some more. Cool? So now let's talk about this round specifically on Haven. So you do have TSM playing as the defensive team, and you have Cloud9 playing the attacker team. If you're looking at the scoreboard now, of course, it's a full gun round, but the money is still somewhat low here for TSM, as Cutler only has a small shield and a Phantom, which is quite interesting because Drone could have bought him at that point. Nonetheless, though, you could also see from the middle of the scoreboard that even though TSM won 3 rounds in a row and then they lost that previous one, their money is still very, very low. So you could tell that those rounds are pretty close in terms of end of rounds and players that were alive. So when you're looking at this situation to keep in mind, then if TSM loses this round, the next round they're only going to have 2,400 credits, which means that they're not going to have enough money and they're going to have to go for like a broken buy with Sheriffs or Spectres. For Cloud9, for instance, though, if they lose the round, they're going to get $1,900 for the first round bonus loss, and they're still going to have enough money to buy into the next. So even if you see that Tens is low on money, his next round, if they lose it, then he has an ultimate ready with the Blade Storm, because he's going to be ultimate charged, and also he could buy a Judge, so he's going to be pretty stacked anyways. All right, so let's go into start things off at least with the setup of TSM on the defense. So as you can tell here from this overhead map, we're going to have Cutler playing as a Cypher who's going to basically solo it at the A side. Cutler is going to place a Trapwire and a Cyber Cage pretty much at a default spot at long A, a camera towards long A as well so he could spot crosses from the attacker's side spawn into the sewers, and then he's also going to spot place a Trapwire and Cyber Cage towards short A. Then you have Sabrosa playing as the Brimstone. He's peeking aggressively towards this mid-side window to see if anybody's going to push out first. Then you have Drone playing inside the garage, solo holding it for now, while Wardell and Hayes together are looking for an aggressive push towards C-Long. The good thing here for the play that I like about TSM on C-Long side is because Hayes also has his res ready. So what they could do is play a high risk, high reward to have Wardell try to push aggressively so he can get a pick. If he doesn't and he dies, then at least Hayes could come up, put the wall up, res him, and then they'll be back and reset on a 5 versus 5, but they have a better idea of how maybe Cloud9 wanted to play the round. Now we're going to look at the setup here from Cloud9. You have basically a Trapwire that's standard on the left side of C to prevent any pushes coming through, or at least to give some information if somebody's flanking. Then you have Relics playing as the Omen, that's watching for any pushes towards long C. You have Tens playing as the Jet, that's looking for any type of garage push. Then you have Shinobi as the Sova, Vice as the Cypher, and Mitch as the Sage. What they want to do now is start with the map control on the attacker side. So how do they do this? They start off by actually throwing one of Vice's Cyber Cages towards the long side of A. And then just basically place Mitch towards the entrance at the connector so he can look down towards the sewers to see if anybody's going to push down towards that side. Meanwhile, though, because of that cage, then the camera, it kind of obstructs the view, so you're playing a little bit in the unknown right now for Cutler. At the same time, though, you do also have Relics that's throwing a dark cover towards long C, but also at the same time, you have Shinobi that threw a recon arrow towards long A. So now not only does the camera not know how many people cross, but you have a Sova arrow that forces now Cypher, aka Cutler in this case, to fall back and get a different position. So how does TSM adapt to this right now from this execution from Cloud9 at the beginning of the round? Because, as you see from the minimap, Cutler is forced to fall back at a different spot because of that recon arrow that kind of gave away his position. Wardell now has to push forward towards long C to see if he can get any map control so that TSM could refocus their defense to stack back towards garage, towards B, or towards A if necessary, or even come back and support Wardell if he does see any aggressive pushes towards long C, right? So looking back at this minimap, you now have Wardell pushing forward at long C, as you could see, and then you have Cutler that's rotated back towards Heaven, where he could just play the camera and also just activate his cyber cages from Heaven without being spotted if he hears some footsteps or executions, so that he could call for the rotation. Okay, so what do they do here? So because they push up towards long C and Wardell hasn't seen anything yet, it's quiet, they've readapted now for TSM. Hayes falls back inside the garage so he could double up with Sabrosa, who rotated and switched over with Drone. So Sabrosa is going to be the first point of contact, where if he needs to run clock down with the Sage Wall or also the smokes towards garage, they can run that clock down, and Drone has the curveballs to actually try to re-engage inside B, where you know, it's smaller and closer range, so him with the Phantom and also the curveballs could do a lot of damage and do his part to anchor as much as he could. But also the role that Drone has is kind of like a rotator between B and A from the A link side should an execute happen towards the A site. So what happens now from Cloud9 is that Vice falls back inside the window room and actually places a camera. And from this camera, as you could see, it's only 1:22 on the clock, so 15 seconds roughly has passed. So he puts a camera up and he notices that there's a brimstone smoke. So from then, he could let his team know, or Vice could let Shinobi know, okay, they're playing the B side very passively. They're turtling up probably to play retake towards B side. How do you want to adapt to this? Right? So Shinobi is going to say, okay, well, let's regroup towards the spawn side and get ready for a full execution towards this A site. But what I like about Cloud9, and this is where we get into the interesting part of the video, is that I like the way that they executed into the A site a little bit more differently than the casual rank style of splitting sewers and splitting long A. And we're going to get to that right now. Mind you, by the way, the spike, I just put a yellow circle because I couldn't find an icon for a spike. So it's just going to be a nice little PowerPoint yellow circle for representing the spike. So Shinobi now says, okay, let's fall back and regroup everybody towards the A side. Let's get ready to execute towards this A site. So he's going to start owl droning here, Shinobi, that is, towards the sewer side, but also, of course, the owl drone crosses over towards the long, where Cypher, as Cutler, most likely had the camera up towards long A and was spotting that area, right? So now he could say, okay, one owl drone, I saw it cross over, but on top of that, now Tens has rotated over to long A and let himself known and be spotted by the camera as well. So now Cutler is going to ask for some rotations and ask for some help because there's a possibility that an execution is coming towards the A side. So now you have a dark cover also that's being thrown by Relics at the same time towards long C, so that he could actually keep Wardell towards long C and not and prevent him from rotating too early and be basically an obstacle for Cloud9 to execute into the eventual A side. Okay? So now the smoke comes up. And then the smoke on the mid side dissipated. You had the rotation that's coming through from TSM, but then Sabrosa, just to be safe, re-smokes middle, and then they go for the rotate at the same time too. So now you have a setup where they're calling up and they're predicting that the execution is going to come towards the A side. Everything is working perfectly well for TSM so far, right? What happens after? So now that you have the Allen drone that went down towards that sewer side, and it was safe for them to cross because Tens was already looking down toward long A and spotted nobody and no opposition. Then you have Relics and Shinobi that's taking the sewers, and Shinobi says, okay, Mitch and Vice, it's time to take mid control. So Mitch and Vice rotate back, and as they rotate back and they're playing with Sabrosa smokes, because I think he's even throwing a third one at that point, Vice is going to decide to put his camera up towards the entrance of B so they could look into B to see if anybody's going to be executing at that point, or rotating rather from TSM side. So far, it's clear. So he calls it for Shinobi, and Shinobi says, time to execute, boys. So what do? We have Relics that's throwing a dark cover towards the right side, backside of B. And at the same time, you have Mitch throwing up a barrier wall, the Sage barrier wall, to give a chance for Mitch and to Vice to push down towards the A link. So basically a pincer maneuver with the team. Of course, they make a lot of noise. So what happens here is that Hayes inside the garage probably hears the wall come up and also hears the footsteps running inside B. So what he says is, Sabrosa, they're actually trying to do something inside B. Sabrosa is going to try to rotate. As Sabrosa is rotating, though, Relics, that's actually still inside the sewers, throws a paranoia. And the paranoia actually hits Sabrosa, that forces him to fall back towards spawn and allows Mitch and also Vice to move down and pincer inside the A site. And at the same time, there was still another dark cover that was ready for Relics, who throws it inside Heaven because, of course, the long C one disappeared. That means now that you have Mitch and Cypher pushing in towards the spawn side. You have Shinobi and Relics, sorry, that's pushing down towards sewers, and then you have Tens that's moving up towards long A. So basically, you have a 5 versus 1 versus drone inside that site. A key player, a key fragger for the team, fully under control by Cloud9, and at the same time, another top fragger for the team, which is Sabrosa, paranoid, and then you have the third top fragger for the team, Wardell, useless right now towards long C because he's still watching for anything that's happening first. Well, of course, he's rotated by now, but he's so far out of the action. So now it allows here for Drone to get the kill onto Drone. They have a trade-off actually towards the spawn side, so Vice falls and Sabrosa gets traded off by Mitch. So now it's a 4 versus 0 moving inside that site because Cutler is still stuck inside A Heaven, right? Now here comes the post-plant situation where, of course, all the utilities from Cypher is all gone. Mitch actually even gets a res onto Vice that allows a 5 versus 1 inside the site again. You have a plant that's coming through, and the post-plant position, it's looking perfect for Cloud9 right now because you have Relics as the Omen that's watching the big flank. You have Shinobi that's basically playing recon arrows if he needs to get information if his teammates are falling down. A great crossfire setup from Mitch and from Vice into the spawn side. And then you have Tens that's still playing towards the top Heaven for a 1 versus 1 battle should anybody peek out there. So what happens for TSM? Remember that I told you guys at that point that the money is very low for TSM, right? So they have to or act quick to try to win the round or maybe try to save their guns into the next. So Hayes moves over towards that spawn side, and because the money is low and he still has the res, he's going to bring Sabrosa up. Meanwhile, I didn't click it over, but of course Wardell has rotated over to some sense towards that garage side, but not really in a position to help out his teammates either because I think they've already decided that they wanted to save their weapons at some point, maybe try to save Cutler and not let him die. But even on top of that, even if they wanted to execute inside the A site, you had the second cyber cage from Vice that was actually thrown there so that he could slow down and block vision even more on the rotations from the defender side. And even on top of that, Relics also still had a dark cover that threw over towards the spawn side too. And by then, you seal the deal. Basically, it's impossible for TSM to come back into the round and get the defuse. And it was basically the round won quite easily by Cloud9. The good news, at least, is that they got the res onto Sabrosa on TSM's side, so they could fall back and they could basically save their 4 weapons, including an operator, into the next to hopefully come back in that one. So all in all, a beautiful execution from Cloud9. I don't want to spoil what the final score of this matchup was. So if you guys actually do want to watch this, I'll post the link of the match in the description so that you guys could check it out. A link to the Pulse Invitational Tournament. But again, please let me know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in your comments what you thought, what you liked, what you didn't like. And if you guys like it, maybe I'll do some more. Or if you guys do like it, for sure I'll do some more. If you don't, maybe I'll still do some more. But hopefully you guys still enjoyed it. And until then, have a good time, a great day, evening, night. And I'll catch you guys on the next video.